Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Oh, we got to change the, this. How about start the month strong? How about that? There we go. Welcome back, everyone. Man, it is freezing out here. I mean, it's probably freezing more everywhere else, but it's cold. Got sweats on today. Morning, everyone. Welcome back. Happy Monday. Happy new month, February. Exciting. Looks like some opportunities out there. So that's good. Doing good, doing good. Nice weekend. Hope you guys had a good weekend as well. Time to get back to work. Eight degrees in Jersey. Oof. It's cold in Costa Rica. Morning, everyone. All the familiar faces. Morning, Rod. All right. So today, new month, new opportunities. A little bit of a pullback on the market in the overnight session, but getting bought up relatively quickly already. So give me back my son. Appreciate that, Macau. It's great. Appreciate that, man. Thanks for starting out the week strong with that donation. Give me back my son. So today, a little bit market downside, getting bought up very aggressively. Good pullbacks, necessary pullbacks. I mean, gold, great pullback. Silver, nice downside. Everything that you saw sort of unravel, I think, very needed. MU, SNDK, STX, absolutely insane moves. Gold, insane move. So a lot of unfolding of sort of just ridiculous things, which does not scare me in the slightest. That's just normal market action. So we'll see where things are sort of settling out today. We'll see where the levels are sort of settling out. Some things are definitely holding this morning, pretty damn strong. So let's go ahead and review. Before we do that, ISM today, 10 o'clock. Really nothing that's going to concern me too much, but just know that it's there. Tomorrow, JOLTS Tuesday, really not concerning. ADP on Wednesday, unemployment claims on Thursday, and consumer sentiment, inflation expectations on Friday. So pretty status quo week in terms of economic data. Nothing that's sort of like, oh my God, I can't believe that's happening. Not really too concerned there. What I think is more interesting right now is definitely the earnings. So some big earnings this week. A lot of big names, as you guys can see. Palantir tonight, that's going to be an interesting one for me. I think that's very intriguing to see how that goes. Definitely would be interested in some shares, depending on the move. Definitely getting intrigued by the opportunity over here. But for now, just going to leave it alone. It's been moving down quite aggressively. Let's see what the earnings does. PayPal, not really that interested there. Really nothing else there today. NXPI for semiconductors. Tomorrow, AMD, SMCI. AMD, definitely a big one. We know that. Uber, Lilly, Novo. Some names there. AbbVie Healthcare. Wednesday, Google, ARM, Qualcomm. So two semiconductors there, one large cap tech. Thursday, Amazon, MicroStrategy, Roblox, IREN, Reddit, Affirm. So really the biggest of the week right here, Amazon, Google, AMD. I'd say those are your big three right there, definitely. So each day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have a pretty large potential move, or at least a very important name reporting earnings. So that's a little bit more interesting to me. And I would say, again, approaching this week, understanding that we are approaching large economic data, large earnings is going to be important. Now, to start this off, on the S&P 500, the next thing I want you to make sure to continue to realize is that the S&P 500 is still within the range of Thursday. So we had an overnight move on the S&P 500 futures down into the daily 100 SMA, which held perfectly, may I add. 68.63 daily 100 SMA holding very, very strong. Now that 68.63 and daily 100 SMA is also some major 4-hour pivots, right? So take a look at where the S&P held overnight. Previous 4-hour highs, previous 4-hour highs, previous 4-hour highs, previous 4-hour highs, previous 4-hour lows, previous 4-hour lows, previous 4-hour lows, and there you are again. So this is not a joke of a level that's holding, and this is absolutely not a level that you're shorting into. That's also the daily 100 SMA. So the bounce that you're seeing today coming off that level is not something to just sort of brush off. I mean, that's a pretty important bounce, and that bounce on the S&P 500 has taken us back above Thursday's lows and back above Friday's lows. And so now this is going to be a very difficult thing to be looking for shorts into Friday's lows, into Thursday's lows, into the daily 50, into this low at 6,900. So you are basically just right back in the channel where you started or ended last week. Thursday's range, Friday's channel, and here we are again within that same exact channel with major earnings this week and more economic data. So does this week interest me in continuation on the S&P? Really not quite, right? Not yet, at least. You need to understand where you are. On Friday, to end last week, we talked about the Thursday range and how the Friday could probably stay within this channel, and look at the price action that you got all day Friday. It's exactly what we talked about to end last week. So look at where you are again. You're inside the same area. Not somewhere that I'm not interested in. So just let's leave it there on the S&P. Not an interesting channel. You have to know where you are. You're inside of Thursday's range, right? You're inside of even Friday's range, and you are above the daily 50, above that Thursday low. You're above the daily 100. You have major supply and potential rejections up here. You have potential rejections at the daily 20. So you are just pretty much littered with, I'd say highest likelihood today, again, a trade within this channel. That's my highest likelihood of the day after reclaiming these lows in the overnight session. Now, before we go into the SPY, I want to go into the NASDAQ because there's a slight discrepancy here, guys, and it's important to pay attention to. So on the NASDAQ futures, where we just talked about the S&P, right? Remember what we just talked about on the S&P. The S&P is above Friday's lows. and back above Thursday's lows, right? See this right here? Back above Thursday's lows, back above Friday's lows. We are trading above it. Now, take a look at the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is below Friday's lows and below Thursday's lows. So there's your discrepancy of the day. So does the NASDAQ reject this Thursday, Friday low and lead to more downside, right? Or does the S&P 500 sort of stay strong? Does the NASDAQ reclaim these lows? And does the NASDAQ have an upside move today back inside the channel? So right now, the NASDAQ is below the channel lows, below the Thursday, below the Friday lows, possibly rejecting that level. Also below the daily 100. So if this is a, sort of pop and fade at the Thursday, Friday lows, we have to then understand that the S&P 500, if you do short that on the NASDAQ, you would be shorting back into this S&P 500 demand low. So this is not an easy day in terms of discrepancy. If the NASDAQ does reclaim Thursday's lows and does reclaim Friday's lows, then I would actually be quite interested in sort of that reclaim long. Now, the problem with the reclaim long in that situation is that you're into the daily 50, into the daily 20. So a lot of things just it's not really that great today, guys, to be honest. It's not like, wow, what a perfect level. There's nothing to be worried about above. This is a lot of noise, a lot of things to be sort of cautious of today. You got S&P NASDAQ discrepancy, divergence. You need to be careful of that all day. You need to see what the NASDAQ does. If the NASDAQ drives weakness here, what is the ES doing? Is the ES breaking through the lows, or is the ES sort of bouncing at the lows, and does the NASDAQ trap a short, right? So all those things need to be very much paid attention to today to not get sort of messed up. So please be careful of all of that. The NASDAQ futures is holding, by the way, may I add here, at 25,365, 25,420. That is a very important previous area it is holding. You have previous highs, you have previous lows, and you can see right here on the 5-minute chart, this area is absolutely trying to hold on. Right here was a rejection. Now it's a reclaim. And so I really wouldn't be looking to short into this area here. So for me, really what's the most interesting for me today, I think the most interesting trade, I'm not bearish or bullish, but what the most interesting and probably most volatile trade would be to provide actual opportunity would be a long on a reclaim of these lows on the NASDAQ. I think that would provide the most volatile and potentially most interesting trade. Now, the reason for that is because you have likely trapped a lot of shorts below here in the overnight session. And if you do reclaim these lows and put all this under pressure, then I do like the potential of maybe a squeeze back to the upside, back to the channel highs. And I think that really is your best trading opportunity. I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I'm not saying that I'm bullish, but I think that's just the best trading opportunity. I would like to see that happen. If that does not occur and you do reject these lows, then I'm not that much of a fan of the short because I don't want to short the NASDAQ there as the S&P is right above the lows from Friday and the lows from Thursday. This would be a very sketchy area to be establishing short positions because you could sort of pull back, hold the Thursday low, and then sort of trap more shorts below the Fridays and into that Thursday low. I'm not a fan of that short there. That's a very trappy zone. And so, yeah, I just don't like that really at all. So I would prefer to see the NASDAQ clear out the Friday lows and give us some kind of a squeeze to the upside. That's sort of what I'm sort of targeting today, but, we'll have to see what the price action shows us. SPY, I also hate the short into this golden zone. We've had this golden zone on our charts for a long time. If you go to the 4-hour chart on the SPY, this has been that zone that we've been looking for pullbacks to, right here, and you can see we are holding that today. If we go to the 30-minute chart, we can see we are back above that Friday low day at 687, and we are back above this Thursday low at 684. So you're back above all these lows here, back above this high, back above that Thursday low. I would really not like to short through this zone here because you would be shorting right back into all of these holds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean, shorting back into that is just not interesting at all. So what would I wouldn't mind to see maybe a pullback into that area today and maybe look for that short trap to come back higher. All right, I wouldn't mind looking for that. But then again, you're right inside this channel on the SPY, right, which is just not fantastic. And I recall, right, if there's one thing I remember, from, last year and all of my previous trading years, when you start to establish channels like this, my trading performance declines. I remember it every time. And so I am just not that intrigued by where you're sitting. And if you're looking for the type of trading that I do, which is sort of break and retest continuation, right, to the upside, or break and retest continuation to the downside, there's really no such thing as break and retest continuation inside of a channel. So you have to know what kind of trader you are. And for me, this type of environment is just not A+. So I will be very careful today inside of this range. Okay. QQQ, we can see the discrepancy that's happening here. Look at the SPY. If you look at the SPY, you can see it is above Friday's lows. It is above Thursday's lows. If you look at the QQQ, you are below Friday's lows and below Thursday's lows. And you're actually rejecting Thursday's lows as we speak. Look at that right there. All right, so here's your Friday low here. Here's your Thursday low here. And look at the rejection that's stepping in right at that level. Now, there could be a scalp short there, right? There could be. I would be very careful staying short into 615, right? Which is right here, 615, 615, 615. I'm not a fan of staying short into that low, but you could definitely look to maybe scalp a short from here to here. That's very possible. Yeah, staying short into this 615 low, this 615 high, and where you held this pre-market is really not that interesting. You can see the daily 100 is holding on the QQQ as well. So a lot of discrepancies today, a lot of things to be very closely paying attention to. If you can reclaim Friday's lows on the QQQ, if you can turn this back into support, Thursday and Friday's lows, if you can turn that back into support today, that would be my most interesting trade, right? Besides that, I'm not a fan of shorting back into some of these holds from the overnight session. But we, again, shall see. SMH. So the Semiconductor ETF SMH, good pullback, great hold, 390. We've had this level on our charts for quite some time. That's a great hold there. We are also reclaiming the 396. That is this high, these lows. We are back above that as well. And we are also back above the daily 20. So this also plays into my reasoning for being a little bit cautious on the short side today. I would be very cautious shorting back into a semiconductor sector that's now back above the daily 20. This is by far the strongest sector, and reclaiming the daily 20 is definitely a reason to be careful of shorting back into it. Now, if we fail back under and start to reject here, then sure, we can pivot and look for more downside. But for now, as we speak, without trying to predict the future, right now, the truth of the matter is that we are back above the daily 20 on the SMH, and I would be very careful looking to short semiconductors, the strongest sector on the stock market, after reclaiming the daily 20. That's just not that interesting. Now, where could this set up a lower high? It's pretty damn clear that it could set up a lower high here at 402, 403. That's abundantly clear. If we see failures at Thursday's lows and start to turn this into a major rejection point that leads to a break back below the daily 20, then this is a very clear sort of change in trend on the SMH for me. All right, then I would be actually more interested in seeing if this does start to sort of unravel this move. Because if you look at this, you have major highs, major lows, and major lows, right? So if you turn this right here into a lower high, right, and you turn this into something like this, then that is a problem. And you are now sort of leaving behind all of this and turning this high back into a massive rejection point. Now that is where I would start to be interested in downside on the SMH. So this is something that has to develop, though. This could take 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. This could take a week. I'm not sure when this would develop, but that would be something I'd be watching. Do we now fail back under these highs? And do we turn that Thursday low a day right here into a rejection point? That is very interesting. That would be your short side look. Okay? So being open to both sides, very important there. IWM, trading back into a similar spot like the SMH. Look at the IWM. Does the IWM turn this high back into a rejection point today? You can see we failed back under this major high and these major lows, so right here and right here. Does this turn into a lower high rejection? Or does this turn into a reclaim ripper? That's really important today for the IWM. I wouldn't really think about historics, It's not important, man. What's going on today is not what happened last February. You know, I think historical months is probably one of the most overrated and ridiculous things to pay attention to be quite honest. Did we have MU, SNDK, WDC? Did we have memory stocks and AI hype like we did last February? No. All right, so there's a lot of things that are driving the market that are different than last year's month, right? It's just not the same. I wouldn't pay attention to it. Pay attention to the here and now. IWM 259, 260, definitely a potential lower high rejection. You could look for that today, or you could look for the reclaim of that previous high right here. Both sides very interesting. All right, gold. So bouncing back, I would be very careful of being a horny bear today on gold. You did pull back into some massive spots. So if you look at gold, obviously a massive give back and obviously a very reasonable give back. I mean, look at gold after it broke 46.70, right? Right here, 46.80. Look what it did. I mean, you can't do this on gold. You just can't. This is not a penny stock. This is a gold commodity, and you can't go straight up like this, okay? It's not possible to not also see the backside of the move, which you did. So this is not surprising in the slightest. If you are a realist about the stock market, if you are not like foaming at the mouth without any type of understanding, then you're like, yeah, okay, yep, that makes a lot of sense. We can't just go straight up. So this is good, right? This is the great reset, which is definitely needed. Now, after resetting like we did here, you have to be careful of, continuing to try to short this if you are now holding some pretty important levels below. So I would be very careful of shorting into 4,500. That's for sure. You can see very clear 4,500 double top highs here, and you can see that is exactly where gold held. I mean, it bounced aggressively now almost 200 points off that 4,500 low. So be very careful into that, all right? You can very clearly see a major double top that is holding very strong. So that's first. Now, second, if we dive down a little bit deeper, we can see that we are holding back above this area right here, which is around that 4620, 4680 zone. That is now a potential hold level as well that I would be careful of. So cautious of shorting gold back into 4,500, cautious of shorting gold back into this 4680. If this starts to hold, could we start to see this recover a little bit? That is possible. I am a very much observer of gold today. I think observing is the right call today, personally. After this massive move, I think a little bit of observation wouldn't hurt you instead of trying to egotistically guess what happens here. Observation, I think, is the right call today on the metals. Let's see which side wins today, and let's see if that sort of sets up a trade midweek. Personally, that's sort of my call. I don't know how this will react today, and I don't want to try to be. I definitely don't want to be on the wrong side of a move today on gold. That's for sure. Being on the wrong side of a move on gold is probably it's like a death sentence, really. So got to be really careful today on these metals. On silver, you are rejecting these previous highs. This was one of my most interesting spots, would be a rejection of these highs on silver, which you can see is occurring right now at 82.67. That's a little bit interesting, but also you can see these massive lows here, which held pretty damn strong at 70. So again, I think I'm a little bit more of an observer of metals today instead of a trader of them. I need to see what today brings. Monday is always a great observation day. Monday is a great day to see which sectors are strong, which sectors are weak, what's the new vibe for the week, right? I can't really guess that just on a Monday pre-market stream. So something that I want to be watching today, but not so much trading, aggressively. So let's see. All right. With that said, let's jump into, we went over that quick, which I like. No BS, no pauses, no nonsense in the chat. Love it. If you guys could, please press that like button for me. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We got 2,100 people here, 600 likes. That's a pretty bad like ratio. If you could, please press that like button. Subscribe to the channel. If you didn't go watch my video yesterday, make sure to check that out today. Posted a recap of my January trading performance. Some good sort of thoughts and everything. Everything from deposits, withdrawals, live logins, live brokerage, everything. Everything you could ask for, reviewing that month. Make sure to check it out. Okay. Let's jump into some equities. Tesla, not much interest in this one today. There's better things to be watching. You are trading back into that 414.50 2021 highs again. Not really a fan of shorting into that level. You can see that level has continued to hold. Maybe, right? It can continue under it, but I'm going to be very cautious of that zone, probably very trappy. I wouldn't mind a little pop and fade at 430. I think that's a pretty good look. If we get a little pop and fade at 430, I like that the most. So like right in here could be very interesting, or even up here at 440. I like those two spots for maybe a little bit of a bear flag breakdown. Maybe if Tesla stays weak, we can get a little pushback higher back into this 430 and then fail it. I think that's much more interesting than shorting Tesla on a gap down into major demand. So that's something I'll be looking for. NVIDIA, again, holding this major low. Not much to do here on NVIDIA, to be quite honest, guys. You have major lows, 185, 186, daily 20, daily 200, or daily 100, right? Daily 100, daily 20. Major retest demand area that continues to hold. Obvious fails back up at the 194, 193. I mean, you're just sort of stuck right inside here. I just don't think this is an opportunity here yet. So for me, holding off on NVIDIA. AMD with earnings, a really good pullback on AMD. Let me add that. This is a fantastic pullback on AMD. This is the necessary pullback. So I really like what AMD is doing, much more than I like other semiconductors right now. Look at where AMD pulled back to. Previous lows, previous highs, highs. Big breakout, big pullback, right back to that level. I like it. Straight up, no good deed goes unpunished, straight back down, right? Same thing. Straight up, straight down. Always happens. You can't go straight up without coming back straight down, unfortunately. Things have to build in structure, right? You need to build structure. How you move higher on the stock market? You structure higher. You don't go like this. You go like this, like this, like this, right? You can't go like this without expecting this. So what did AMD do? Well, it went straight up. So it hit this rejection point and it came straight back down. So this is good, right? This is not something to be concerned about on AMD. Obviously, earnings in the next, earnings tomorrow is a problem, and we'll sort of make this analysis a little bit of a guess because earnings, who the hell knows what happens. But in terms of technicals, this is a perfect hold on AMD at 225, 226. If AMD can hold back above this 234 high, I'm actually not opposed to looking for an intraday trade on AMD today to see if there is some opportunity. I'm going to actually mark out the Friday lows as well real quick. Hold on. Friday lows were right here. So you have a low here from Friday. Oh, hold on. So I would want to see AMD back above these Thursday and Friday lows. You can see the Friday lows were right here on AMD, and then this morning low, I'm probably going to mark out this morning low as well. So for me, if I can get AMD back over like this 234, 235.50, that could be an interesting trade back to the upside on AMD, personally. I don't mind that. All right, if you can turn this level back into a low, this level back into a low, see something like this today, I don't mind that to maybe push back towards that 244. So that's not a bad look. After coming off that major demand and maybe a little bit of a move prior to earnings, that could be interesting. I would be watching this one today. This is a little bit more interesting than NVIDIA for sure. Other semiconductor that I'm going to continue to pay attention to is Broadcom. Broadcom has been very weak, but it is sitting at this major low. This major low continues to defend. However, the level that it needs to break very clearly, and where I lost on Friday, was at this daily 20. That was a total sort of mistake by me, getting too aggressive by that daily 20, and that's where I took that loss. So not really that interested on Broadcom. I'm watching this low. I'm watching this high, just basically monitoring what this is going to do. MU, really good hold here. If we go to the daily chart on MU, we have a daily low right here. This daily low right here is 399.60. That 399.60 400 spot is exactly where you held this morning. That's a good low. That's a good hold of that Tuesday low. If we go out to the hourly chart, actually, let's go to the 15-minute. I would like to see what MU does today at these lows of last week. So you have a Thursday low here. You have a low here at 417. I would like to see what MU does at this 417, 412 zone. If MU holds this, I think you could probably see a push back towards that high here at 428. If you get above that, MU might actually have a recovery move, but we shall see. Sort of pending here for me. I'm just interested to see what MU does at this high and these lows. That is 412 to 417. Let's see what it does on this pushback higher. Stocks like WDC, good pullback, right? These high-flying stocks. This is a great pullback for WDC. If this thing wants to continue in this strong move, look at the pullback that's occurred. Look at the diversion, or the sort of, what's the word? Not divert. I guess you could call it diversion, but sort of the move away from the daily 20, sort of the just sort of ridiculous straight-up move. That's not going to last, right? These moves do not last. This is a good pullback back to sort of realism, back to reality. You're back towards that curling daily 20 SMA, which is great, right? And today, really what the goal of today is for WDC, or how you read this, is do you reject this 257 like this, or do you reclaim this 257 like this? 6 more weeks of winter from the groundhog? I mean, I could tell he's probably right, because it's freezing, man. 255, 257, that's the level for WDC today. Do you hold it or do you reject it? That's all I'm watching. Failures here would be a nice failure of these previous highs. Reclaims here would be a very important reclaim of these previous highs. That could lead this to more upside. SNDK, good pullback back to this 553 spot. 533 would be the next spot. Not that interested in this one, as it still has this very clear failure spot at 628. I'm not a big fan of that 628 or longing into that. But if we do get a nice reaction at this 553 or even 533 spot, there is some interest there. STX. So if you guys remember STX, we came into Friday's live stream and we were looking at it like this, right? And we were saying we want to pull back down to the 389 or the 370. And so it may feel like it was far-fetched, like, Desi, we're not going to get a pullback there. And we can see that that is exactly where STX tanked right down to on Friday. So pretty damn perfect pullback on STX as well. Right back down to this low, right back down to these highs, right holding that level right now, 389, 384. There's a very clear reclaim level today that I would be watching to see what it does. You are either going to get a reclaim of this Friday high, of this Friday sort of rejection point. Friday high is all the way up here, and these rejections from here, that's 411.75. You are either going to get that reclaim long there, or you are going to see this turn into a lower high failure. So this is a very intriguing spot, and you can see I have an alert there today on STX. Okay, let's go to... Apple's not interesting today. Google's not interesting today. Both sitting inside of a channel. Not anything that's worth watching for me there. Microsoft. So Microsoft this is the second gap trap. That's what we've been calling it, the gap trap. You can see there is a gap below on Microsoft under 425. You have now trapped below that gap 2 times. So you trapped below it on Thursday intraday, and you trapped below it in the overnight session last night. So that is 2 traps below that gap fill level that I'm sure a lot of people are looking to short below. You are holding back above it. Now, on Friday, we were cautious of this 438 level, and look at how that failed. So for me, not that interesting on Microsoft, but I am intrigued to see how this trap that keeps getting set up here will sort of move price action. Let's see what it does right at that 425 level today. Meta. probably one of my most interesting trades today. I really like where Meta has pulled back to. It might need more, but I would be very cognizant of what we pulled back to on Meta. If you look at this 4-hour chart on Meta, obviously we had a straight up move on earnings, which we have retraced. We've retraced roughly 50% of that move, just about. 50% of the move on Meta has been given back on earnings. The move that we pulled back to, the level that we pulled back to, were these major 4-hour lows, right? Look at this major spot right here on Meta. You have lows, 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 lows. All this low here and all these lows here. That is exactly where you held on Meta at 693. So if we dive down into the 15-minute chart, we can see that 693 on the dot is what held on Meta here in the overnight session as you moved lower. Now you have a daily 200, daily 100 here, which maybe we still need to move lower to. And how would you get that move? You would get that move by failing this 710, 712, which you can see is happening right now. So if you turn this Thursday, this earnings low, this Thursday low, and this Friday low into a failure point, something like this, right? Break and retest rejection. That could drive us lower to the 693. And if you break that, then you're coming down to that 676 and that daily 200, daily 100 SMA. If you reclaim 712, 710, something like this, then you will move higher after pulling back off this 693. So very interesting spot on Meta today. That is very much a watch for me. Palantir, earnings tonight. Definitely a big earnings. I would be careful trying to guess what it does. I will say that Palantir has trapped below this major low. I will say that, right? You can see here, major lows, major lows, major lows. Look at the trap that has been set below it. So you have seen a little bit of a drop and pop, right? You're back above that major spot here this morning after trapping below it. So if that does hold strong today, that Thursday low 148 area, then maybe you can see this thing recover a little bit prior to earnings, possibly back up into the 152.50. Above that, you're probably going to trade back to this 160 area. So this is interesting. It's tempting. I'll tell you, I'll just be honest with you. It's very tempting to buy shares before earnings. I've thought about it. I'm holding off on the idea. I'm controlling myself. But it is interesting, I will say. ASTS, another great hold of the lows. If we go to the 4-hour chart, we can see ASTS perfect pullback to the daily 20 SMA here in the overnight. Very good hold. Still holding above these major highs here. Still a great consolidation and possible more upside on ASTS. However, it is rejecting the exact level that you do not want to see it reject for upside, and that is the 113 right here. This is the Thursday low. This rejection is definitely stepping in. So what I would do here is I'd put an alert above that to see if it gets back above for that upside move. If it doesn't, it's going to trade maybe back down to that daily 20. APP is a little bit interesting today, having a very strong recovery move, up almost $20 a share in the overnight session. I would be very interested to see what it does back at these previous lows. This is going to be a very intriguing spot. If you trade back into the 511, 525 area, back, into the daily 200, what does it do here? Does it turn into a rejection or does it reclaim? This is really interesting for me. So if you look at this daily chart, you can see APP, these highs right here at 525.15. If that stays as a rejection point, something like this, that could lead to more downside if this fails. But if this reclaims and you turn that back into support after failing below, trapping below, holding the 200, and getting back over these highs, now that's equally as interesting of an upside opportunity. So this is the major spot. And that's the great thing about key levels, because there's trades on both sides of them. It's not just this is a must-short level. It's either a short or it's a really important long. So big level there for APP to be paying attention to. Okay. We got our job done pretty quick. That's about all I'm watching today. I'm not interested really in the crypto move. I can show you IBIT just so you can get an idea of where you are. IBIT is down at a massive retest spot and a very important demand. So where did IBIT move lower into? If you look at this IBIT chart, take a look at this area that you just moved lower into. So if you grab this low here and grab this high here, that is exactly where IBIT is holding. So right here you can see between 42 and 43 on IBIT, which is this high and this low, check out where you held this morning. Right in that zone. So I do not like shorting into that zone on IBIT, which means I don't like shorting Bitcoin today after this gap down. Maybe there's some interest in sort of reclaiming longs, right? There's maybe some reclaim long interest. But I am not sure if I want to enter that arena today. Let's put it at that. I'm not really too sure I'm interested in entering that arena today. Maybe something to watch. I surely don't want to be short into 42. I'll tell you that. Is there a reclaim long? Is there some bounce opportunity? Maybe. Coinbase, maybe. Hood, maybe off that. MSTR, terrible stock. I'll continue to say it. I've said it publicly on this live stream for a long time. This is a terrible stock. I would really highly recommend not being a part of this. It's a diluting company. It's sold to buy more shares of Bitcoin or buy more Bitcoins. It doesn't make sense to me. This company doesn't make sense. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. This stock is diluted to build capital for buying Bitcoin. It just doesn't make sense to... I don't know. Maybe I'm a hater, but I don't like how it's ran. It's basically like, hey, give me your money so I can sell it and buy more Bitcoin. So why not? What's the advantage to the person buying this instead of just buying Bitcoin themselves? Like, it doesn't make sense. Why buy this when you can just buy Bitcoin? If you are bullish on Bitcoin, then why would you buy the asset that is being diluted to buy Bitcoin? So, yeah, I would stay away, my friends, personally. Bitcoin futures, nice weekly level that's holding. It's really not a bad weekly level. Look at that. Right into that low, right into that high. That's a pretty interesting spot, huh? Is this a little bit of a capitulation low on Bitcoin? Who knows? Maybe. How do you find that info out? Just look up MSTR. Look what Michael Saylor does to that stock. He sells it to raise more capital to buy crypto, right? So he dilutes the company to buy more crypto. So what's the point? Why not just buy crypto? Why not just buy Bitcoin as the end consumer, right? Doesn't make sense. Okay. That's it for me. Thursday, Friday lows, NASDAQ futures. Must-watch spot today. That's QQQ 618, 619.30. Thursday, Friday lows. Must-watch spot. What do we do there? S&P 500. Watch it holding above those lows. Yeah, that's it. It's Monday. A lot of question marks out there. Capital preservation. Cautious in the range on the S&P. Find some information today. Let some levels develop. We got a whole week ahead of us. So no reason to start this week trying to guess what happens. Let's let some things develop. Let's see how they play out. And let's move from there, right? All right, guys. Hope you have a fantastic trading day. If you want to trade live with me on a daily basis, check out the link down below. We're taking some mentorship applications as well. So if you have been interested in checking out more about that program, make sure to check that out as well. And let's start the month strong. Press that like button, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for the donation. The $1.99 donation from Macau. Give me back my son. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Thanks for the support. And I will see you guys on tomorrow, Tuesday. Peace.